missed you, man.
Hi, this is Simon. Welcome to another Marvelous Videos. Agree or not, Spider-Man is one of the best and finest creations of Stan Lee. The character, being relatable to any struggling teenager, gained immense popularity amongst comic lovers. The popular Spider-Man movies also enhanced the excitement revolving around the character and uplifted its likeness. However, there were struggles in making the characters work in live-action movies. Even before Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, there were several failed attempts to showcase the character on the big screen, and today we'll be discussing about the 11 cancelled projects on Spider-Man. So without further delay, let us begin. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, then please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you, and let's begin.
It's Spider-Man!
Number 1. Spider-Man 4. Sam Raimi's Spider-Man in 2002 was an eye-opener for the superhero film genre. The movie was well received by all fans and was soon followed by two others, in 2004 and 2007, although the third one, featuring Venom and Sandman, did not meet its expectations. The trilogy in total made $2.5 billion. This eventually made Sony plan for Spider-Man 4 with Sam Raimi. Tobey Maguire and Kirsten Dunst would have continued their roles as Peter and Mary Jane, while Anne Hathaway could have been featured as Felicia Hardy, aka Black Cat. The movie would have also showcased the classic Spider-Man villain Vulture, played by John Malkovich, along with Peter's professor, Curt Connors, transforming into the Lizard. According to sources, Sam Raimi also wanted Bruce Campbell to play his part in the movie as Mysterio. Spider-Man 4 would have been a complete follow-up for the trilogy. Peter and Mary would have entered a phase in their relationship after the death of their close friend Harry, and would have ended with Peter losing his powers at the end of the movie. However, following the disappointment of Spider-Man 3, Sam Raimi found it extremely difficult to put on a good script that could bring back the glory of the first two films. As per the terms of Sony's rights to Spider-Man, they had to consistently release Spider-Man movies, which made them set the release date for Spider-Man 4 in May 2011. This further worsened the situation for the director, who was keen on not making another Spider-Man movie in a rush. Eventually, after repeated attempts, Sam Raimi decided to step down rather than making a sequel he did not believe in, and this closed all hopes for Spider-Man 4. However, Sony had to preserve their rights, for which it went forward with a reboot. Number 2. Sinister Six. Following Andrew Garfield's The Amazing Spider-Man, Sony had plans for multiple spin-offs with the same universe. In December 2013, Sony announced two of its spin-off projects, Venom and Sinister Six. Venom was successfully carried out, but it did not work the same for Sinister Six. With Drew Goddard hired to rewrite and direct the movie, Sony had plans to make it a massive supervillain crossover film, leading to the Morbius movie. According to sources, Drew Goddard wanted the movie to uphold his punk rock mentality, which he had showcased in his meta-horror comedy masterpiece, The Cabin in the Woods. The team of supervillains would include Dane DeHaan's Green Goblin from The Amazing Spider-Man 2, who would have attained the mantle of the Goblin King, and also led to the Sinister Six. It was pretty evident that Drew Goddard wanted to transform the villains into terrifying versions of what they were, hence the idea for the Goblin King. We would have also seen Paul Giamatti's Rhino, which had unfortunately one of the most criticized characters in The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Fans were not happy with the depiction of the character, which was loosely adapted from the Ultimate Marvel version of the character. There would have been Dr. Octopus, Kraven the Hunter, Vulture, and Mysterio alongside them. However, all that planning went futile after The Amazing Spider-Man 2 performed poorly. The movie has taken a bold attempt to include three villains and their storylines, but failed to stitch them efficiently. This became the reason for the movie's downfall, following which all plans of making Sinister Six were shelved. Number 3. The Amazing Spider-Man 3 and 4. The failure of the 2014 The Amazing Spider-Man 2 had its effect on Sinister Six and two more sequels of Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man. The Amazing Spider-Man 3, which was scheduled to be released in 2016, would have showcased Peter's life struggles after losing Gwen Stacy. Driven by guilt, he tried to resurrect the dead, only to bring back George Stacy. The movie would have the Sinister Six as the villain Spider-Man fought against. Some sources state that Sony wanted another reboot after the 2014 Spider-Man movie brought disappointments, while some blamed it on the controversial Sony hack of 2014, which brought quite a bit of turmoil for the studio. Although there were no reports for the plot of Spider-Man 4, both sequels were cancelled for the same reasons. Sony made a deal to share the rights with the MCU in 2015, after which we saw Tom Holland play Spider-Man in 2016's Captain America: Civil War. Number 4. James Cameron's Spider-Man. The 21st century Menahem Golan deeply desired to have a Spider-Man movie. The project faced a lot of hassles, but Golan did not give up on the idea. He approached Marvel in 1992, but to his despair, they cancelled it. Following this, James Cameron was hired to write the script for the movie, which was then submitted to Carolco Pictures. Cameron, for some reason, wanted to make an R-rated film for Spider-Man. This movie would have showcased Peter Parker getting his powers, but also adjusting to his puberty. There were some bizarre scenes where Peter would be peeping on Mary Jane while changing, and also a moment where the two would be having sex on Brooklyn Bridge. Cameron had kept Leonardo DiCaprio in mind for the role of Peter Parker and Drew Barrymore for Gwen Stacy. The film would also have Mary Jane, for which Robin Lively was being considered. Electro and Sandman, played by Lance Henriksen and Michael Biehn, were the villains that would have been appearing in the movie, while there were rumors of having Arnold Schwarzenegger as Doc Ock. However, the movie was not cancelled for the script. There were several reasons why James Cameron's Spider-Man was never made, the first being the legal disagreements between Golan and Carolco, followed by the latter and Marvel going completely bankrupt in 1996. While Cameron moved on to work in other projects, Columbia and Sony acquired the full Spider-Man movie rights by the end of the decade.
Hello, Peter.
Number 5. Spider-Man: Home Run. 2021 Spider-Man: No Way Home was indeed one of the most thrilling Spider-Man movies ever made. Being the 6th highest grossing film ever, the movie was a success both in terms of profit and critical acclaim. However, this was not what the studio had planned for the future of the web-slinging superhero. Originally, after Spider-Man: Far From Home, MCU had plans of releasing a different movie titled Spider-Man: Home Run. The movie would have continued from Peter's identity being revealed to the world by Mysterio, and he would have faced Kraven the Hunter, but the movie would have also showcased Matt Murdock, aka Daredevil, in alliance with Spider-Man. While most of the cast remained the same, Jason Momoa was thought of the role of Kraven, although it is not clear what was the exact reason behind the movie's cancellation, but COVID-19 pandemic could certainly be one of them, which hampered its filming. Secondly, as we all know, Jason Momoa was working for DC as Aquaman, and he was not allowed to work for MCU simultaneously. According to sources, there were several rewrites for the script which kept delaying the onset of filming. Owing to all these reasons collectively, the movie was cancelled, and instead the studios went forward with Spider-Man: No Way Home. Number 6. Canon Films Spider-Man. In 1985, Canon Films purchased the rights to Spider-Man for $225,000, but their idea of the character was completely wrong. They had hired the director of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Tobe Hooper, to write a horror story revolving around the character. Spider-Man in the movie would have been transformed into a human spider by an evil scientist named Dr. Zork. Peter Parker in the animated series once had mutated to become a human spider, but Tobe Hooper's take was completely different and not close to what the character originally was. The movie revolved around Peter's transformation and his fight against other such experimented products of Dr. Zork. This was later revised, and Ted Newsom and John Brancato came up with a completely different script that stayed loyal to the classic Spider-Man origin story. The new script featured Peter Parker as a college student and Dr. Otto Octavius as his mentor. While Peter got his powers, his mentor transformed into Doc Ock, serving as the movie's primarily villain. Joseph Zito was hired to direct the movie, who had Tom Cruise in mind for the role of Peter Parker before settling with Scott Lever. Canon even released a teaser trailer for the movie, but only to cancel it in 1988 after their significant failures with their films like Masters of the Universe and Superman: The Quest for Peace. According to sources, the studio had spent almost $10 million developing the film, including the cost of props and set design. Following this, the company's graph began to dip at a high pace, and after several other failures, they went out of business, resulting in the movie's cancellation. Canon Pictures went out of business in 1944.
I don't care.
7. The Amazing Spider-Man vs. Spider-Man. Before Spider-Man became part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Sony had plans for having a live-action Spider-Verse movie with both Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield. And as the name suggests, it was a multiverse crossover, where the two Spider-Men would meet. According to sources, Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man would have fought Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man, and then teamed up to save the day. The movie's release was planned for 2020, with Mark Webb as director and Sam Raimi as the producer. However, the film was cancelled after the poor response to The Amazing Spider-Man 2 and Andrew Garfield's removal from the role. According to the leaked data after the Sony hack incident, Andrew Garfield was fired after failing to attend an event. Without Andrew Garfield, there was no real purpose for making the crossover movie, so it was cancelled. Number 8. Spider-Man 3, the original version. Although 2007 Spider-Man 3 received mixed reviews, it was indeed a power-packed movie with more than one supervillain. However, the movie initially had a completely different script, which did not have Venom as the main villain. It would have featured Sandman as the secondary villain, while the spot for the main villain was reserved for Adrian Toomes, aka the Vulture. According to the story, the film, in its early minutes, would have showcased Spider-Man responding to a distress call from the police for a robbery and confronting Adrian Toomes. Spider-Man managed to save the day and imprison Adrian, making the latter develop an immense hatred for the wall crawler. While in prison, Adrian met Flint Marko, and together they planned a prison break. The supervillains would then team up to take down Spider-Man. Later on March 15, 2005, the idea of having Vulture was scrapped out and replaced by Harry Osborn, who had a history of vengeance against Peter Parker. In addition, the studio wanted to incorporate Venom, simply owing to the character's popularity in being one of the most consistent and matched opponents of Spider-Man. Sam Raimi did not want to introduce Venom, but owing to Sony's persuasion, he ended up having Venom in the movie. However, there was not much time for reconsidering, as Sony had to release the Spider-Man movie as early as possible. Number 9. Venom, New Line Cinema film. Around some time in 1997, the New Line Cinema had plans for making a film on Venom. David S. Goyer was hired and he came up with the script for Venom in the same year. The movie would have showcased Venom facing off against Carnage. Back in the 90s, it was a trend to incorporate big stars headlining the movies, and so Dolph Lundgren was kept in mind for playing the character Eddie Brock, while Robert Englund was thought of for Cletus Cassidy. Unlike the comics, Carnage would have been showcased as one of the members of a group of symbiotes called the Blood Hunters. The film would not have any Spider-Man, which was a bold step for the era. However, New Line Cinema was not pleased by Goyer's script, which kept the project delayed until the studio sold their rights to Spider-Man and all its characters to Sony. Number 10. David Fincher's Spider-Man. Sony, after purchasing the rights to Spider-Man, tested several directors to write the script for their Spider-Man movie before approaching Sam Raimi. By 1999, they had shortlisted Michael Bay, Chris Columbus, Barry Sonnenfeld, and David Fincher. David's script would have showcased a brief origin story of Peter Parker in the form of a musical and would have then moved on to the psychology of a teenager who at a vulnerable age had come invulnerable. He had Edward Norton in mind to play the role of Peter Parker. Sony discarded Fincher's idea as they did not like it, following which Sam Raimi was hired to do the task. Number 11. Roger Corman and Stan Lee's Spider-Man. Roger Corman planned to make his Spider-Man movie back in the 1980s. Being known for creating iconic movies in Hollywood out of base topics and low budget, he thought of delivering a new take on the web-crawling superhero. He hired Stan Lee to write the script, and that was when the problems began. While Corman believed in making a low-budget film emphasizing art, Stan Lee wanted a big-budget magnum opus. According to sources, his script included a Doc Octopus as the primary villain and would have showcased an epic battle between him and Spider-Man on the top of the United Nations building. Unlike the Spidey movies, Peter Parker in the script had many love interests, and since it was the early 80s, Spider-Man also played an active role in preventing a nuclear war between Russia and the USA. However, everything came to a halt after Roger Corman lost his rights on Spider-Man. Spider-Man and the Incredible Hulk TV crossover. After the success of the latter 1970s and early 1980s The Incredible Hulk TV series, there were plans to make a crossover TV series featuring Hulk and Spider-Man. While Bill Bixby and Lou Ferrigno would have continued their roles as Bruce Banner and Hulk, Nicholas Hammond would have played the role of Spider-Man. After the Amazing Spider-Man TV series, Nicholas Hammond had already been accustomed to the role. However, all progress on the TV series was halted and later cancelled. According to Lou Ferrigno's 2003 biography, the crossover would have showcased a Spider-Man-Hulk duo fighting against regular criminals like drug dealers and the Mafia, and it was not liked by Stan Lee, who wanted to showcase the Spider-Man villains from the comics. However, the Incredible Hulk TV series was also showing a negative slope in terms of popularity and profit, following which all plans of making the crossover TV series was scrapped off. Conclusion. So we finally come to the end of our video, and we hope you found it informative and entertaining. Spider-Man has been an all-time favourite for Marvel fans, for which we all wait for upcoming movies, be it animated or live action. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse is scheduled to be released on June 2nd, 2023. We're all looking forward to the new scintillating and thrilling story involving Spider-Man from different realities. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks everyone.